It's summertime, warmer weather with longer days. But let's not forget, the dangers of COVID-19 still linger. Be safe while you go out to enjoy yourself. Remember the curfew times, social distancing and face masks. Just do the right thing as we try to eliminate the spread of the virus. Welcome to Jamaica Magazine. I'm Adrian Atkinson. We have an interesting show lined up for you as we will be looking at the work being done by the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management to create social distancing in shelters as we prepare for the hurricane season. You don't want to miss a minute, so stay tuned.
Yo, this is We're committed to reducing the impact of disasters occurring in Jamaica. We're ever ready to assist you before, during and after a disaster. But everybody have a role to play, so make we work together and follow the plan. Whether rich or poor or where you come from, hurricanes affect everyone, so be prepared. Prevention is better than cure. Be prepared. Listen to OPM. A message from the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management.
It's the Atlantic hurricane season, and today we'll be discussing ODPEM's plans and preparation in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. We have all the hurricane tips coming up next on Get the Facts.
Welcome to Get the Facts, the program that provides you with information on government's policies and initiatives. I'm your host, Enthros Campbell. During this period, many of us will remember names such as Ivan, Charlie, Flora, and Gilbert, simply because we are in the Atlantic hurricane season, which runs from June 1 to November 30. And these were some of the names of hurricanes. So this year, what should we expect? What should we be doing now? How prepared are we as a country? Today we call on an expert voice, Acting Director General at the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, Richard Thompson, to answer these questions and much more. Mr. Thompson, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, we're so very happy that you could make it. But tell us, what can we expect from this year's hurricane season?
Well, this year hurricane season has been forecast to be above normal in terms of the number of events that we will have. Normal is normally about 10 named hurricanes for the season. This year the forecasting is looking for 13 to 19 hurricanes for the season. Well, 13 to 19 named storms and 6 to 10 to be hurricanes and 3 to 6 to be major hurricanes. And when we talk about major hurricanes, we're talking about category 3 and over, starting at about 111 miles per hour at category 3 and up to 156 miles per hour and over in terms of a category 5 events. And we have been having more of your large category hurricanes. Yes. We see where Bahamas was impacted by a category 5 event that spent hours over Bahamas. Dorian was there for very slow moving system, and it spent a very long time over Bahamas, dumping Bahamas with torrential rain that caused a lot of flooding. So for small island developing state like ours, like Jamaica, it becomes very important to ensure that there is preparedness measures and mitigation measures being employed. Not only leading into the season,
yes,
but way in advance, given our exposure to hurricanes and given our vulnerability.
Right.
So this year it takes on added significance because we are not only looking at preparedness for the hurricane season, we are also responding to a global pandemic.
Right,
we have an outbreak of COVID in Jamaica.
Right.
So this year's process takes on added significance where we have to expand our preparedness measure to include protocols that are already in place and protocols that we're developing in light of COVID.
All right, tell us about some of those measures.
So the bulk of the protocol and the measures that we're looking at is really around your shelter management process. And at the start of the hurricane season, or way before the start of the hurricane season, we start looking at your shelter inspections and looking at how best we are doing our shelter preparedness measures. And the shelter inspection is really It includes the OPM, who is the main part of the process, but integral to the process is the local authorities.
Yes.
No named municipal corporation, a lot of us probably our age would know them as parish councils.
Yes.
And they play a critical role in the inspection process. The parish disaster coordinators are critical, but this year we would have added in that mix the Jamaica Fire Brigade and the Ministry of Health, because we are now looking at the whole aspect of the protocols around COVID and how shelters will operate in light of COVID. Shelters are normally very crowded spaces. So with the advent of COVID and looking at infectious disease control measures, then you now have to start looking at additional spaces. Schools are normally used as shelters. Church halls. Many times you will get schools being used as a shelter, but you use a small percentage of the school space for shelters. It's looking now at additional space so you can do your 6 feet physical distancing protocol, and also looking at areas within those shelters that can be used for isolation.
Yes.
Just in case someone comes into the shelter, and while in the shelter they probably start showing signs of COVID-19, then they have to be isolated. They have to go through the tests and rigors that the Ministry of Health will do in terms of their protocol, and to ensure that we are preventing any kind of spread in the shelter, because you don't want to be responding to a hurricane, and because of our response to the hurricane, you're expanding the outbreak in country, because we would be still going through a COVID response.
But you're gonna need more personnel, right? Because you're gonna have to monitor the people in the shelter, because you know how people are.
Yes. So
you're 6 feet, but I mean, how are you gonna get people to really stay within the 6 feet? And when you get them to eat and so on, how are you going to?
Well, you're perfectly correct. So it would be looking at how the shelter management is done within the shelters, and the additional staffing that the shelters would require to effectively function. So all these are looked at in terms of the protocol that is way advanced in its development stage in terms of the shelter protocol amidst COVID. Would have already had shelter protocols, but we have to now tweak it a bit to look at the COVID side of the overall.
But that's some of the protocol. We know we can't take animals.
But yes, we don't allow animals. We normally say to persons that you come already with some perishable items. Those who can do that, we do admit that there are persons who on a regular day they can't or even afford those things, because they are below the poverty net, and so the state will ensure that provisions are made for those persons. But as best as possible, we say to persons, ensure that you have those within the shelter.
You provide beds and so on?
So cots, blankets, and those comfort items are provided for shelters. And we also say you ensure that if you have babies, you ensure you come with the formulas, the necessary feed for the babies. You take your medication if you're hypertensive, if you have diabetes or anything like that, and if you're on any kind of other medication, you take those. Persons you take your reading glasses if you wear glasses like myself. And those things that you can function within the space of the shelter. And on the side of the state, we ensure that the shelter managers are in. There is a security protocol in place. Now we are looking at COVID. There's a COVID protocol in place in terms of thermometers for your testing, your hand sanitizers, and all the necessary other supplies.
All right. We're going to have to break there. We'll come back. We've only talked about just the shelters, really, but we have much more to talk about. So we're going to take a break now. We'll pick up with some more information on the Atlantic hurricane season and what we are doing as a country to keep us safe. Stay with us. Welcome back to Get the Facts. We're talking about the Atlantic hurricane season with Richard Thompson, who is the Acting Director General at the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, OPM. So let's continue the discussion. I want us to talk now about, as Jamaicans, what should we be doing at this time. But you don't see any hurricane, you don't see any rain. How do we prepare?
Well, you're perfectly right. We're going through a drought spell, and we would have had a week ago the experience with the Saharan area passing through, which is a lot of people call this Saharan dust.
Yes.
So and that would have increased the temperature a bit. So person would not be seeing a lot of rainfall, even though we have some rainfall. So persons would not be seeing that. So a lot of persons might not be preparing, but it's ample time at the beginning of the hurricane season, and even way in advance to start doing your preparation, looking at your roofs to see if there is any leakages, to see if there is any room for doing your retrofitting. We always say that in the development process, when you're doing your construction for your houses, they should be built with hurricane straps. So if you can afford it and you can have your engineers pass through, have a look at your roofs. If they need to be retrofitted with hurricane straps, persons can do that. Look at trees that are close.
What are hurricane straps?
Well, they are really rectangular or square-like metal design structure that are actually placed on your roof members. So you have the larts that run in your roof. You have the larts that anchor the roof to the frame of the building, and the straps hold those together. So you find that it anchors better in place, as opposed to you having you nail on your roof to your frame, but it is not properly anchored.
Right. So straps, and then
and ensure that your zincs are properly interlocked and overlaid, and look at your trees. You have trees close to your houses, ensure that those are being pruned. Looking at your non-perishables, we always say to persons, you should always have a stock of non-perishables. It's not only for preparedness for the hurricane season. You do have situations where you have flash flooding, and person would have to go into shelters, or you might have some kind of major event happening that you have a close down of your commercial distribution network. So you should have these.
So non-perishables, no meat, none of those things that would spoil it.
Well, you can have your meat, but that's not a part of your that you can have all the time.
Yes.
But wouldn't be a part of your hurricane reserves. So you ensure that your corned beef, mackerel, that kind of thing, that is non-perishables.
You
crackers,
remember the corned beef?
Crackers. Well, we had a lot of that in Gilbert.
Yes.
We had a lot of that in Gilbert. Your crackers, that kind of stuff that can easily be used. So you have that.
What about windows?
And you do rotations. You ensure that if you a lot of it is expensive to do, and we still say to persons as best as possible, if you can afford to do it. Your hurricane shutters. If you storm shutters, if you can afford to put those in, you put those in. But if we are at your hurricane watch, your hurricane warning, persons within the watch, persons should start doing their battening up. Yes. Ensure that you have a lot of persons do that with plyboards. Ensure that your windows are battened up, and that you are now protecting your windows from being blown out in the system. So those are some of the measures persons should have in place. In preparation for the
which is more serious, the watch or the warning? Well,
the watch means that there is a possibility that within about 48 hours we will experience a hurricane. In the warning, it means that within 36 hours you will start experiencing hurricane conditions. Yes. So once we give a hurricane warning, it means that the island will be impacted by hurricane conditions.
How do you alert us? How does OPM alert us?
Well, we take our cue from the Met Office, which leads in that process, and the alert process is a lot of it is media, in terms of your old school media. People talk about new media, yes, social media, but the radio stations form a important part in giving the warning coming out of the Met Service and from the OPM.
And there's a particular signal that you have that you use to alert us?
Well, there's a national warning tone where once the country will hear that tone, then you know that the country will be undergoing an emergency condition. Yes, that's something we are really, it exists. Yes. It has been used many times, and we are working to ensure there's a rebranding of the tone for it to be more, I won't say a little bit more frightening, but person will pay greater attention to it when it is used.
All right, tell us about the shelters now. So you have shelters in all the parishes.
So there are shelters in all the parishes, and I would have said before that the local authority would have been key to the shelter inspection and ensuring that there's a shelter listing. Yes. And that is managed.
Where can we find the list?
The list can be, you can go onto the OPM website.
Tell us about that.
www.odpem.org.jm. It is on the Ministry of Local Government website, and it's also on all the local authorities' website, all the parish councils. And on that as well, you will get the name of your parish disaster coordinator, person that you will normally call if there's anything major happening in the parish. So there's extensive work that's been done. All the assessment has been done, and we are now looking at as well updating our shelter managers. A lot of them have come out of the system. So that a lot of time that a lot of our shelter managers are females. Yes. Females tend to give a lot of work in communities as it relates to disaster risk reduction and many other processes in communities.
So they do a lot of work.
They do a lot of work,
yes.
and they are integral to the process, which
yes.
we are extremely happy for.
Yes.
We hope that more men will come on board.
Right, yeah. So you're recruiting now?
So we are the local authorities have gone through the process to update and bring on new persons on board to fill the gap for persons who would have left, and training has taken place, and we're still doing training. Okay. The situation this year amidst COVID is that you can't bring in a lot of persons at once into a shared training facility.
But have enough people.
But we are doing the process in terms of from using the technology to do the training and bring in less persons at a time. So we would have covered in terms of the shelter managers for the shelters.
Right. So we're experiencing a hurricane now. The hurricane is approaching. At what point do the people head for the shelters, and what do they do before they move into the shelter?
Well, as best as possible. If you're within a flood-prone area, you should really get into your shelter within 12 hours of impact. Yes. And we say to persons, get into your shelters as early as possible. You don't want to be trying to evacuate in the midst of the hurricane. Only if necessary, because you might have persons that they are not in a flood-prone area. They don't live in a low-lying area, but it so happened that in the middle of the hurricane you lose your roof. You have to do some kind kind of evacuation.
Right, to wrap now. Just quickly tell us what's the difference between a hurricane and a storm.
The wind speed.
Which is more dangerous?
Both can be extremely dangerous. Yes. Your tropical storm would range from about 39 miles per hour up to about 74 miles per hour. At 73 miles per hour, anything above 74 miles per hour now becomes a hurricane. Okay. And then it goes through the grind from your Category 1 hurricane up to your Category 5 system, which is 156 miles per hour and greater.
Okay, your last word for Jamaicans as we close here.
Stay safe in light of COVID. Listen to the messages from the Ministry of Health, the OPM, the Ministry of Local Government, information coming out of the cabinet. In relation to hurricane, the same process. Listen to the Met Service, information from the OPM, and as best as possible, follow all the necessary messages that are given by the agents of the state to ensure that we are not only given the information, but we are protecting the public. So as best as possible, once the public listen to the advisory coming from the government and from the agent of the state, we will ensure that all the other protocols are in place to ensure that the country is safe.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Thompson, for coming today to share that useful information with us.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me and for using your platform to get the message out there.
This has been Get the Facts. Our guest was Richard Thompson, Acting Director General at the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, OPM. Now, this year's Atlantic hurricane season predicts a 60% chance of an above normal season and only 10% chance of a below normal one. Coupled with those projections is the COVID-19 pandemic, which could very well impact the preparedness and response activities for the season. Now more than ever, it is essential to consider adapting evacuation plans and prepare well in advance. Get your first aid kits, batteries, flashlights, and non-perishable items. Until next time, when Get the Facts brings you another informative program, I'm Rose Campbell. Thanks for watching and take good care. Be safe.
You've asked for it, and now it's here. The Jamaica Information Service has updated its mobile app. It's easier to navigate, loads even faster than before, talking about top speed, operates seamlessly across platforms, and we're a creative bunch, so it's much easier on the eyes. Now you have quick and easy access to news stories, television and radio features, and a variety of photos right at your fingertips. And you'll get push notifications when new content is uploaded. Download the app on your Apple and Android devices now and get news you can use. Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica on the go.
With the phased reopening of the economy, you have the opportunity to visit select public places. If you're looking for a nice place to drive to, have a picnic and just enjoy the outdoors, then you should visit one of Jamaica's public gardens. Check this out.
We're here in St. Thomas at one of the oldest botanical gardens in the Western Hemisphere, the Bath Botanical Gardens. This is the beginning of a journey to discover the scientific, cultural and historical value of public gardens. Come now, let's explore these national and natural treasures. So what differentiates a public garden from a regular place where flowers and trees grow?
A public garden is an institution where plants are collected for the purpose of education, research, conservation, and recreation.
Along with Bath, there are 3 other public gardens on the island: Castleton in St. Mary and Hope and Syncona Gardens, both in St. Andrew. The public can access these venues at no cost. Today, we'll be exploring Bath and Castleton. Except for Hope Gardens, the Public Gardens Division of the Ministry of Agriculture, Commerce, Industry and Fisheries, MICAF, preserves and maintains these natural beauties.
The objective then of the public garden is to conserve the biodiversity of plant life in the island. So we're here to ensure that the plants are maintained, they are conserved, they are preserved, that research is conducted on them so that generations and generations will have that area.
Bath Botanical Garden was the first public garden established on the island. As a research site, imported plants were introduced here to assess how they would adapt to the tropical environment.
Food that Jamaicans love, like breadfruit, was first introduced to this garden by Captain Bly. He came here with the breadfruit, the ackee and OTT apple, those are the famous ones. Other plants were introduced to the garden that people see all the time, the bougainvilleas, the crotons, all of these were first introduced to the gardens.
Constant flooding from the nearby sulfuric spring destroyed many of the plants and led to a decline of the garden. Though nowhere near its former glory, the space still provides the opportunity for persons to come and enjoy nature's bounty.
Bath is a beautiful garden. It's one of the gardens that has the atmosphere that you come in here. It's a cool, calming environment that I would encourage anybody to come. If you want to study, you can come here and study. If you want to just come out with your church group, want to come out with any little grouping, or even yourself and a friend can come and walk and learn about the different plants that are in the garden.
Bath's fall saw the rise of this location as the premier growing spot for exotic plants in Jamaica.
The garden you're visiting is Castleton Botanical Garden. It was owned by a man called Colonel Castle. Colonel Castle traveled all over the country and bring plants from different countries and plant here. So when he get old, he donated to the government of Jamaica. The government finished cultivate it and give it its name, Kingston Botanical Garden.
Growing here are many of the plants introduced on the island in the 19th and 20th century. These include poinciana, Bombay mango, navel orange, and tangerine.
One time it had over 400 palms. I think we're down to 180 species. So you have an area dedicated to the various palms that were introduced into the gardens. We also have rare fruits like mangosteen, and they have another one, the real velvet apple, that you wouldn't find anywhere else.
This is the Phoenix palm. When you knock it like this with a stone, it gives you sound. Why it gave you that sound? Because it's hollow inside. The more it grows old, the more it expands hollow.
Educational tours are just some of the offerings here at Castleton. But you can stop by for a swim if that's your thing. Perhaps a cookout is more your flavor. Or set up a spot on the lawn and bask in the glory of the great outdoors. Our expedition of the historic Bath and diverse Castleton Gardens ends here. Syncona and hope await, but in another edition of Jamaica Magazine. Until then, keep looking out.
People believe that the COVID-19 pandemic is over simply because flights are coming in and out, beaches and parks are being opened, and even the curfew hours are being shortened. Do not be fooled. Keep practicing social distancing, wear your masks, and sanitize.
There is a sense of complacency setting in, where people somehow are of the view that the pandemic is over. That is not the case, and I want to take this opportunity to again appeal to our Jamaicans to remember, observe the measures, wear your mask, do your hand sanitizing, do your social distancing, and just be very careful about your personal health and your own interactions. The pandemic is not over, as you would see in countries that are close to us, that their numbers are rising significantly. And it is, aside from the good management that we have given to the pandemic, but a lot has to do with your own personal responsibility and your faithfulness and consistency in observing the measures. And that has ensured that we have kept our numbers here low.
Do the right thing as we aim to make Jamaica the place of choice to live, work, raise families, and do business. Thanks for watching another edition of Jamaica Magazine. Do join us again tomorrow and we'll do this all over again. Until then, send your feedback on today's show to jamaicamagazine@gis.gov.jm. Also follow us on all our social media pages, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Download our app on your Apple and Android devices, and you can also visit our website, jis.gov.jm, for more information. On behalf of the entire production crew, I'm Adrian Atkinson. Thanks for watching.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.